better?
Okay, there we go.
My charge cord unplugged itself.
What's up, everybody? Welcome back to the Second Street Marvel. I am your host, Trinity. Thank you all so much for tuning in to the morning movie chat. Um, Now, if you're new here, thank you all so much for being here. And if you're a returning viewer, thank you so much for being here as well. I do greatly appreciate it. I got a very special day ahead of us today. We got a special guest here. But before we get into that, I want to let you all know, please make sure that you're subscribed and make sure that you hit that like button. It does, it helps grow the channel and all that kinds of stuff. YouTube always tells us to do these kinds of things. You know what I mean? Like, there's somebody literally that you can't see them off camera, but they're there telling me to make sure that you guys do all of that kind of stuff. Because if not, they're going to be very unhappy with me. But as I said, today we are going to be having a special discussion here about the upcoming service. And we got a very special guest here, and that is Mads Mama Bear. And everybody go ahead and welcome Mads Mama Bear here to the conversation. How are you doing this morning?
Oh, doing great this morning.
All right. All right. Um, Yeah, so we brought you on. I seen recently you started doing some streaming and with some other people, and I was like, oh, I've got to get Mads Mama Bear here on my show too. She's a very good supporter of the channel, as is most of the people that are always here every single morning. And today we're going to be discussing an upcoming series on the Disney Plus streaming service, and that is the Falcon and Winter Soldier series. Something I'm pretty excited about, and I believe we probably both me and Matt probably have different views on why we're happy about it. But go ahead and introduce yourself, Mads. You can tell people where to find you and everything. Would be great.
Hey everybody. Matt's Mama Bear. I I can be found on Twitter under the same name. I've been a huge Marvel fan for Marvel, DC, all of that, pretty much since I was a kid. So yeah, so super stoked about it. I've been following this so
Yeah, me too. Yeah, I mean, I'm pretty nerdy about this stuff. Like I was into reading comic books when I was a kid, and I think I took about a 25 plus year hiatus and didn't do any reading. But then last year, I got in a bike crash. I crashed on my bicycle and broke my collarbone, all kinds of stuff. And during that time, I ended up getting back into comic books, and it's kind of funny how I got back into them is from some Instagram posts from my local comic shop. But yeah, and but I guess before that, I guess you could say I fell more into the what do we call them? Normies. Yeah, I was the
Mhm.
normie for a while, but here I am now, right?
Kind of a hybrid. I mean, I'm not super uh into not really super backed on the reading of the comic books,
Mm-hmm.
but for me, because I'm an insomniac, as some probably are already aware of this, because I'm on the late night live streams as well.
Mm-hmm.
But um, so Google, all of that stuff, Wiki has really helped what knowledge I didn't have from younger, which in truth, is just fleshing out a little bit extra.
Yeah, and I know like when I got back into reading, one of the things aside from going into my local comic book shop and getting picking up a couple of comic books was that I'm not sure if you have like there's a subscription service out there through Marvel, and yeah, I think you can even get like Comixology and things like that, but
Mhm.
they got that Marvel Unlimited, and you can go on there and they got like almost the whole history of the Marvel library there on that app, and it's really good and convenient. Um,
Yeah.
so it's a good way to get caught up because I found myself doing the same thing. Like I'd get online and be like looking stuff up, like okay, what's going on with this story? And then at some point I was like, man, I'm doing all this reading on Wikipedia. I might as well just get subscribe to one of these services and just start reading some comics. And this was and actually the this whole story, like with the Falcon and Winter Soldier. I mean, I guess we don't really know much about it, but kind of that story is, or in a roundabout way, is what got me back into reading comics because I got back into reading comics. Is I was a big Spider-Man fan, but then as I was in the comic shop, I remembered thinking like, oh yeah, you know what? I remember there's a story that's going on right now, or had just happened, where Captain America was revealed to be a Hydra agent, and I was like,
Yeah.
that's interesting to me. That was it piqued my interest, so I went ahead and picked up a Captain America comic book at that time, and I read it. It was, I don't know, it was probably like I think it was Steve Rogers Captain America, like issue number 15.
Mhm.
And through that, I read it. It was a really great book. It had a great cover. I did the thing you're not supposed to do. I judged a book by its cover,
Oh.
and so I went ahead and picked it up, and I read it. I was like, oh man, this is really good. So I was like, I got to go back. Maybe I need to go back to the beginning of the series. And I went back and I looked at the issue, because my local comic shop had most of the comic books there, and I was looking. I'm like, wait a second. So I went and picked up the collected trades of it, and
Mhm.
through that, I read that, and it made me want to read. Okay, so I went back and I read all kinds of different stuff, and one of the things I actually happened to read was that Sam Wilson Captain America story as well, and just a little bit of stuff that came before that. Have you had a chance to read like any of those kind of stories or look into any of that kinds of stuff?
Oh yeah. I mean, again, I will not pretend to be anywhere as versed as you yourself are, but no, as you can see, you know, bit of
Yeah,
a fan.
yeah, yeah, definitely. So, what is it that's got you excited about this storyline for the Falcon and Winter Soldier coming up?
I won't lie, I've got a bit of crush on Sam Wilson, so
Okay. As in like Anthony Mackie, or actually Sam Wilson like the character?
both.
Both? Okay. That works.
Both.
That works. That
Like
works.
I like the wings. Like he followed me around at when I was doing school last year, so it was on my backpack all the time.
Nice. Nice.
Yeah.
Yeah, and me, like I said, I'd never really read much of Falcon before. Well, probably not at all before I read this story, and and yeah, I'm actually a fan of Anthony Mackie as well. He's a pretty good actor, and I'll admit it, he's a good looking dude. He's a good looking
He
dude.
is.
Um,
They both are.
yeah, and
But they also have a really good back and forth with each other, both on and off screen.
mm-hmm. Yeah, yeah, definitely, yeah. And you're talking about Sebastian Stan. I'm guessing there, right? That's going to be
Yeah.
Winter Soldier. Yeah, yeah, and he's one of those dudes. He's a good looking dude as well. I'm perfectly comfortable in my sexuality and saying, yeah, I can say a dude's good looking. Hey, it's all good. I'm not worried about that kind of stuff.
No, the way I look at it is there are some people, male or female, that it's okay either way to admit that they're attractive because that's just human nature.
Right.
Jensen Ackles, Sebastian Stan, you know, that kind of stuff.
Yeah, and it's interesting about Sebastian Stan too. Like I said, he's a good looking dude, but it was funny
Mhm.
because one of my friends sent me this tweet, or was it? No, he didn't send me a tweet. He just sent me this picture one day. I think that he found online about how much Sebastian Stan looks like the young Luke Skywalker. He looks like the young Mark
Ooh,
Hamill.
I've seen that one. It really, like, if they had gone back and instead of doing like Luke growing up, or even that in between the originals trilogy and the one half the fandom doesn't want to talk about, uh, they really could put Sebastian Stan in that role of that time in between.
Yeah, definitely. And now I guess the one problem with that, the only problem with that I don't know, I see, is I think Sebastian Stan is probably a little bit better of an actor. As far as like being on screen and things like that, and I think that's really not any fault of Mark Hamill's or anything, just because he's really kind of had limited screen time as far as like actual
Hmm.
like acting gigs, and I honestly don't know that he's probably really that into it, to be honest. I mean, but he is definitely a prominent voice in a lot of these nerdy things we like, especially like Star Wars, and then he was voiced the Joker through the Batman series, cartoon series, and everything like that. So yeah, that would definitely be something. That would be something cool to be explored, though. With Sebastian Stan coming in to do like a Luke role, and
Well, he did. Mark Hamill did have actually a bit more than just Star Wars for the screen time. I
yeah,
mean, how we got the role of the Joker is through the Flash TV series back in the '90s. He played the trickster,
okay,
and it was that role that actually got them interested, and he used the same voice for the Joker.
Right. Yeah, as I'm saying, I remember that was the TV show of the Flash. I don't really remember that. I mean, I remember watching it when I was a kid, um,
Yeah,
and I believe even the guy who played Flash himself, didn't he? I think he recently came back into the series as well.
yeah. He plays Grant Gustin's father. At least that's how it started off in the series. Is in crossover
Mm-hmm.
and will be in Crisis on Infinite Earths this coming season.
Oh, okay. And see, I'm a huge nerd when it comes to a lot of these stuff, but like for me, I like films, like movies. I'm not really into like any of the TV shows. Like even with this upcoming streaming service coming up, on Disney
Mhm.
Plus, it's gonna be hard for me to watch that because I'm just not I myself I'm not really into like the whole TV format. It just I don't know. It doesn't really work for me. And it's not really always about budgets or anything. It's just kind of I don't know, something about the TV format. Like for me, it's more just about like if you got a sitcom, like a Friends or like Blackish or God, what's that other one that I always liked? The Goldbergs, stuff like that. I don't mind the TV format for because they're just short little 30-minute things. But then like some of these like more kind of serious TV shows, I'm just like I don't know, really doesn't do it for me because like the Netflix Marvel shows, those were really hard for me to watch.
That I'll give you. I even struggled with some of them. I'm a real TV junkie.
Hmm.
I've been a binge watcher since I was a kid. So yeah, that's I'm mad I'm a little backed up on my Flash because I don't get the CW up here. So
Oh,
yeah, I'm
okay.
definitely catching back up on that. So
All right, and again, I want to thank everybody in the live chat. I see we got Kobe reviews movies here, dude. I just actually subscribed to your channel the other day. I got to go back and this young man does movie reviews, and I've got to go watch some of his reviews because I actually seen and he looks like a young kid, probably teenager. Not exactly for sure his age, but he did a review I didn't get a chance to watch it yet of One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest, and I was like, oh dude, I've got to see this from the perspective of like somebody from the younger generation because like me, I don't think I seen that one until I was definitely in my 20s, and that's an absolutely great movie. But Kobe, if you're out there listening, I can't wait to go to your channel and check that out. Wookiee Lives
mm,
Matter. Welcome to the live stream. And Russell Wells Benjamin says, "Hell Hydra." And so what is it about this new show that's got you excited aside from attraction?
nothing much. No, it's just I like the story. The I know some people are really unsure about the angle that they're going at, but I think it's actually a good representation about what's really going on with society right now, and that's something you and I have actually talked about a number of times. Is really like I'm not like you. I'm not a super huge fan of the escapist stuff
Hmm.
because good shows, like I grew up watching really good stuff, always should have a reflection of what's going on, kind of holding up a mirror to society.
Right. Agreed.
And
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah. I agree.
and go go ahead.
Oh yeah, I was gonna say, and that's one of the things, like, I hear a lot of people out there, that talk about just like the movies, no matter what movies it is, a lot of people talking about like, oh, this is supposed to be escapist media, a way for us to just kind of get away from the real world. And I'm always kind of sitting there like, I just don't
Mm,
believe that, because like you said, really great movies, they present things, whether it's actually in our real world or just allegories to things going on in our the real world, that really that trying to get those messages through, and some of those kinds of things in an interesting way is something I always look forward to when watching some of these movies, um, because they are an art
yeah,
form in and of themselves, and I think through that is what ends up making them work on screen as well, because I think it kind of captivates audiences in the fact that maybe it might actually get them to maybe think about things from a different light, maybe get somebody else's
exactly.
perspective, or just maybe how it impacts society as a whole, us outside of our own little worlds.
Get off, get off. I mean, even like Doctor Who did that with the new Doctor, and I know a lot of people aren't really fan of the female Doctor, but they did that where they even went back and in the 60s, I'm drawing a blank on her name, the one that refused to get up off the bus, Rosa Parks,
Oh,
and
okay,
they
yeah.
did that one. And that again, that was actually one of my favorite from this series, is because it was not just escapism. It was that does not work. I fidget a lot. If you guys haven't noticed, but it not only held up where the past was, but also where things really are a bit to this point,
Mm-hmm.
and that's actually why I liked it.
All right. Yeah, yeah. Um, Kobe Reviews Movies says, "Do you think Old Man Captain America will be in the show? What do you think about that?"
I doubt it. They like probably in the pilot, or like if they do, it'll be in the pilot, or maybe like sweep sweep type situation. But
Mm-hmm.
I know I don't really expect to see him. More likely, we may see an old Peggy Carter
Oh yeah, yeah.
or her niece, you know.
Mm-hmm.
But that's I don't expect to see Chris Evans in it.
Yeah, I think I'm feeling the same way. I mean, part of the reason, I mean, because Chris Evans has come out and he's said he don't want to be not necessarily don't want to be in the MCU, but he's kind of ready to be done with it. Don't want to kind of overdo it, I
Mhm.
guess. And not
Yeah.
only that, I kind of feel like that like that would actually take away from the focus on the Falcon and Winter Soldier. However, I do think if he does show up, it would probably be towards the end of the
Mhm.
series if they go and do something like that. And I do have several reasons why I feel that way. And that's just because of what happens in the storyline through the whole Steve Rogers and Sam Wilson Captain America story, where we seen at the end of Avengers Endgame, he went ahead and handed the shield to Sam Wilson, and he did the same exact thing happened in the comics, and then eventually Sam Wilson ends up giving the shield back to Cap because
Mhm.
Cap ends up becoming young again and he gets all his powers back, which is kind of an interesting conundrum in and of itself. So I think that's one of the reasons why I don't think that he'll be showing up in the series, and if he does, it will be in probably a very minor role towards the end.
Mhm. No, I'm with you, and that, and also both Bucky and Sam are, despite the fact we haven't seen it as much with the movies, they are their own respective heroes.
Mm-hmm.
Like both of them are soldiers. They have vast skills, knowledge, and this is something actually I'm really excited to see with them, because at this point they've both been just like played off as sidekicks, and that's not something that's really fair for either one of them.
Right, right, and it almost seems it almost actually seems a little unfair to even have actually both of these characters together in the same series, although
Exactly.
they did have a very good I don't know a very good rapport on screen
Mhm.
during the films and the times we got to see them together.
And honestly, I think that's one of the places that I think Marvel really could have stepped up and improved upon,
Mm-hmm.
because they really could have put out a Sam Wilson Captain America movie.
Mm-hmm.
It would have brought people in. It did with Black Panther, and he is a liked character,
Yeah,
and
definitely.
play up the controversy. I know the group has talked about this a number of times, like uh, Lord Callis, all of that is mentioned. You know, controversy sells. Controversy brings people into the seats, and that's really what they're trying to do at this point.
Right. Yes, definitely agreed. Highly agreed there. Um, and the thing is like the one thing I like about that is kind of like you're saying about the controversy is that in the comic books this was like a very controversial thing. And the one thing I didn't like about the Sam Wilson Captain America storyline is
Hmm.
that when I say this, um, knowing that I am a big fan of Nick Spencer who wrote this series, but
Hmm.
the only thing I think I really didn't like about the comic book was the fact that the comic book was literally like reading, like it was like a direct translation of what I seen going on during the election time, put into a
Mm,
comic book. And for me, I'm kind of like, man, this is really, it's really almost like not imaginative. In the
yeah.
fact that they're doing that, because I mean, it's like instead of reading this comic book, I could have just went and turned on CNN or Fox News during the election cycle and seen the exact same thing on screen. However, at the same time, I think it was good in that way, like we were saying a minute ago, in the fact that we do get to see some of those kind of real life things happening in this fictional piece. So I think there, like you were saying, there are some allegories that can be made, and if they're done in the right way, it's tolerable. Just in that particular series, I didn't like it so much because a lot of it was really on the nose.
Yeah. And then again, that's probably one of the problems that they are going to come across with this one, because again, it's you got that similar climate that you did back when they had the Sam Wilson storyline originally.
Right.
So that in it could either be a really good reflection on society, like Black Lightning actually is doing a wonderful job of that,
Mm-hmm.
or it could almost look like a mockery,
Mm-hmm.
and it all depends on how they play this out.
Right. And okay, and I want to say we got Abu Nas here in the live chats as well. He says salute to everyone in the chat. How's it going? Sending love to these two awesome people on the panel, and thank you so much Abu Nas for being here. And again, my apologies for not being on some Black Guys in a Drunk these past couple weeks. It's been a crazy time, and I actually really missed it this past Tuesday because they did it on Abu Nas's channel. And
Mm,
if you guys don't know who Abu Nas is, go check out his channel. Great dude. I would say a very outspoken member of the fandom menace community. I think he is definitely one of the big voices out there. Very good guy.
definitely one of the louder ones, yes.
And so hopefully we'll have it there again on his channel soon, and I'll be able to make it on. And so yeah, and I think it's very, I don't know, maybe it's not quite so coincidental that we're getting ready to get this show. I believe it's supposed to be premiering next year on the Disney Plus
Mm,
streaming service. I'm not really too for sure. I mean, they haven't really released a whole lot of details about it anyway, but I think it's kind of funny that this comic book, when it came out, the Sam Wilson Captain America, was actually done, I believe, right around election time. And well, what do you know? Where do we find ourselves right now? Getting ready to go
yeah,
into another election time here in the United States.
and one that's going to be very charged.
Yes,
You
it, it
know,
it definitely is, and to me, man, I really get tired of seeing all that stuff. Like, I'm not really big into the politics or anything. And then,
mhm,
and that's kind of why seeing, knowing everything that happened last election time, because really, I mean, all these things that have been going on in the media, between, I mean, the growing of the MCU, what happened with Star Wars and the Last Jedi, and that happened at the same time as the
mhm,
election cycle was coming around too, and it's just like, I mean, it was shortly, like all around the same time. All these things kind of boiled up, and it's like, and that's kind of where the entertainment landscape has
mhm.
come to. Is that it's almost in itself like just exactly what the political cycle was like, and I'm kind of like, oh man, I'm not quite so sure if I'm ready for this. Can can people go back to posting food on their Instagram and Facebook and stuff again? What happened to 2014?
No, I can. I mean, I do make some pretty impressive dishes, but
Oh, Russell Wells Benjamin says Black Lightning. Yikes. Abuna says, hell yeah, brother. And hey, man, it's all good. You're always with us in spirit. Yeah, I try to be,
mhm,
and I made it, it was funny because I was reading comic books that day and I fell asleep. And my kids woke me up to make them dinner, and I was like, oh, I woke up and I put on the stream, and they were just getting ready to wrap it up. I was like, ah, dang it, dang it. We
that's
got
fun.
Christy here as well. She says, loving these morning live streams. Well, and thank you for being here, Christy. I
Mm,
do greatly appreciate it. And Abuna says, love me some Mad Mama Bear anyway. Yes, indeed, indeed. And and it's it's great to finally see you being on some streams and getting out there and getting your voice a little more out there as well. Because I know you know I usually see you here in the live streams and just on the shows and everything, interacting with everybody in the chats and very active on Twitter as well. It is nice to finally see your face and get you on some of these streams. It's very nice, very nice.
It's definitely a different experience being on this side of the camera versus hanging comments that apparently people love so much. Some of the YouTubers are really good humored about it, Zod especially, because it's just way too easy to make fun of.
Yes, yes. So, what are some of your predictions for the Falcon and Winter Soldier series, and what would you like to see out of it?
Honestly, I'm not sure what to predict when it comes to it. I mean, I know they're playing up that whole racial angle, so there's probably going to be a few very heated episodes when it comes to that kind of stuff, because that's a topic you can't avoid when you're approaching that anyway.
Definitely.
And again, I grew up in again, I'm no stranger to it. Not to mention you still have Bucky's um, mind control. There's another word for it, and the whole sleeper thing.
Mm-hmm.
So that could also play a factor as well,
Right.
which would provide a very interesting to see if Sam can handle that if he gets into that Hydra Russian that Winter Soldier mode again.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, definitely. And I know, like, since he's been in the MCU, he's been one of my favorite characters anyway.
Hmm.
And I think part of that too is just because his hairstyle. I mean, like we already went into the dude's a good looking dude, but you know what? Like, if I wasn't bald right here, if I could grow hair, and I'm not losing hair, it's just migrating down my neck. But I would have my hairstyle just like that, that kind of long, just about shoulder length hair, maybe a little bit longer. Love the
Hmm.
look, love the look. I feel bad because my son, he now has short hair, but when he was growing up, until I don't know, maybe up in about 2 years ago, we finally cut his hair. But he had long hair. One year I went in for Halloween and made him
Hmm.
a little jacket that was the Winter Soldier. It was black, and I put the silver arm on it and everything. And man, he looked the part. It was great. It was great.
It's adorable.
But he's definitely an interesting character and one of my favorites. And as a matter of fact, he actually delivered one of my like. There's just like this little clip of a scene out of all the movies that is probably one of my favorite scenes in the MCU. And I've probably flapped my gums about this a lot, but it is in Captain America: Civil War, where right after the battle at the airport, they're leaving and they're on the Quinjet, and Steve and Bucky are sitting there having this conversation. And this is just something I absolutely love, and I'm almost getting goosebumps just thinking about it and talking about it. Is there's a little scene where Steve Rogers is talking to him, and he says, those things you did all those
Hmm.
years ago, all those people you killed. He said it's not your fault. You were under, basically under the mind control of Hydra, and it just the camera just flashes to Bucky, and he goes, "Yeah, I know, but I did it." And I'm just like, "Oh, dude, like that's." It's just so great because for one, I mean, he's like this bad guy, and he says later like he remembers all the victims and everything, and he's willing to step up to the plate and take that personal responsibility for all of those things he done. And this day and age, that's like it's so sad. It's actually kind of sad that this has to be something like an admirable trait that people have, is
Yeah,
taking responsibility for their actions, because these days it seems like everybody's trying to escape responsibility for their actions.
but that actually will be an interesting part of the storyline because both of them have experience as soldiers with the PTSD. I
Yes.
mean that's actually how we got introduced to Sam.
Right.
Is he counsels that,
Mm-hmm.
and that actually will be a great bonding factor between the two of them because Sam has the experience of helping people with
Right.
PTSD, dealing with a whole load of it.
Yeah, definitely agreed. I agree with you 100%.
Mhm.
And yeah, I think that that'll definitely make, and it makes me wonder how that's going to play out in the story as well. But with those kind of aspects, where that's kind of what Sam Wilson did, and knowing the, I guess you could say the history of the Winter Soldier in those kinds of ways, it'll definitely bring an interesting dynamic to the screen. And hopefully it's they get a lot of good messages in there, and it really resonates with the with the audience.
Hmm.
And Russell Wells Benjamin says, can't get the image of you in a wig out of my head now, bro. PM me the address. I'm sending one for you to wear on the show. Okay, I'll do that. I'll do that. Oh, that's great. That's great. But then I feel kind of bad wearing a wig. I don't know. I'm not sure if I'm quite there yet. Maybe can you just pay for some plugs? Maybe
Nah.
Oh, but yeah, and for me, I'm kind of excited to see the series because one, I read a lot. Like I said, that was kind of what got me back into reading comic books. Was kind of what's leading up to this series. Is
Hmm.
like I said, I got into the Captain America thing that where he became a Hydra agent, and then I went back to the storyline that was called Assault on Pleasant Hill.
Hmm.
And kind of the Assault on Pleasant Hill, it was like a nice little run, and it had several tie-in issues to it, and then it eventually it kind of spinned off into like the Sam Wilson Captain America, Steve Rogers Captain America series, and that went into Civil War Two, which
Yeah.
Civil War Two then led into the Secret Empire. And I'm not sure how familiar you are with any of these stories, but what happened in the Assault on Pleasant Hill was Maria Hill was in charge of Shield at the
Hmm.
time, and she set up this prison in this little town, in this little small community. And it was a unique prison because what they did was they were using Kobik, or at the time it was before it was really well, no, it was Kobik at that time, which Kobik was what had happened. They were experimenting with the well, in this case, in the MCU version, it would be the Tesseract, but they had this cosmic cube, and it exploded in their facility at the time, and it became a sentient being, which was this little girl called Kobik. And she could warp reality, and be it people's
Hmm.
minds or just like what they're seeing. And so Maria Hill used her to create, with the help of Dr. Eric Selvig, to
Hmm.
create this prison for people. And so they had all these superhuman, or yeah, like these superhero bad guys who were there locked up, and she had them kind of under mind control. And they were all there, and they thought they were somebody else. I mean, like, one of the dudes is running an ice cream shop, one of them's running a mechanic shop, and one of the people in there was Baron Zemo. And Baron Zemo was actually the guy who kind of broke everybody out. Kind of broke everybody
Yeah.
out of the prison, because he knew, like, he's like, wait a minute, like, this isn't reality, this isn't real. And he realized who he was, and he started like this underground movement, and kind of eventually started an uprising there. And what happened was, there was there in this small
Hmm.
town, and all the Avengers came in to stop it, because it turned into chaos. It was just like a big old prison riot, and it turned into chaos. So all the Avengers arrive, and then
Hmm.
who ends up becoming the prisoners was all the Avengers, while the bad guys broke out.
I know.
Yeah, and yeah, it was very interesting. And I got really into that. I'm like, ooh, this is great, because like everything that's in that book is stuff that has already been, I guess, beat around in the MCU so far. I mean, we got Eric Selvig, who was brought in. God, what was it? I can't remember which movie that was at the end of. Thor, I believe it was, where he was brought in to help Shield experiment with the Tesseract and things like that. And then, at the end of the
Yes.
movie, we see, Loki was there, like, interesting. And then, that we see that they were doing that, and then they eventually went into God, was it the Winter Soldier, where they were talking about having, we see they eventually had like Raft, and they were
Hmm.
using the technology to kind of prevent crimes that were going to be happening. And just, I guess, predictive justice. And that's something that actually goes into the Civil War 2, because Civil War 2 broke out through this kid who had these powers where he would see the future, and they were using that, and that's the interesting thing is because there became the divide there through Civil War II because Iron Man was against, Tony Stark was against using this kid Ulysses to
Hmm.
predict justice and go out and stop things from happening. And Captain Marvel, Carol Danvers, was actually there. She was for it and was using this kid to go out there and prevent these crimes. And Tony Stark was there, kind of saying like, like maybe these visions the kid is getting are actually, maybe these are situations that he's seeing in the future that we actually, through his intervention and us going in to intervene is what leads to them. Maybe we just need to step back and not do this.
See,
And and then that led into the Civil War too, and I've been kind of predicting that as well. That maybe I'm thinking the next Captain Marvel movie. A lot of people have thought that it's going to be Secret Invasion or all these different ideas. I'm thinking the next Captain Marvel movie might be Captain Marvel Civil War two.
that'd be awesome, actually. It just when it comes to that whole Carol Danvers thing, and her, wanting to actually being okay with using a kid for crime. I'm assuming this is pre her meeting Rogue. Otherwise, I could see her having very different opinions about that afterwards.
Yeah,
Because Rogue was used for that, and that's how she got Carol Danvers' powers.
right. Yeah, and I believe because I believe the whole Rogue thing that happened a long time ago in the comics, and it's been, I think the reason they might skip through all of that is because of what we've seen in the MCU so far with Captain Marvel, Carol Danvers, where
Hmm.
they kind of really crashed the plane into the mountain on that whole thing. But I myself, I think there's a way to maybe draw that back and maybe get things a little more in line and satisfy some of the people out there who are kind of against how she was brought into the MCU and things like that,
Hmm.
especially with like the changing of what was Marvel being changed into into an old lady into the movies, which I think was a huge mistake. But there's so much that happened in the Captain Marvel movie that I'm like they could easily fix a lot of that,
Hmm.
because they recently did, I think it was just like last year, they did a series called The Life of Captain Marvel, where we find out that Carol Danvers' mother was actually a Kree warrior that was sent here to Earth to,
Hmm.
kind of keep an eye on things, make sure the Earth's not going to become a threat. But I believe they were after something as well, her mother's mission. And, through the course of I'm not sure if you've seen the Captain Marvel movie, but
Uh,
it it's supposed to be, like one of those. It's supposed to be telling her backstory and everything like that, but we don't learn anything about her history
yeah.
throughout the whole course of this movie, other than she had a best friend. She was in the Air Force and she helped raise her best friend's kids. That's really all we learned in the movie. We didn't learn anything about her family or really anything else.
Hmm.
And I'm thinking, because like one of the things I've been saying is they could easily go back and fix some of these things and bring actual Marvel into the story, since she was in that explosion, doesn't have her memories, and the Kree basically mess with her mind. Is they could still
Yeah.
bring him back in and say, okay, like he was like Dr. Lawson was actually there. The Kree played with your mind and they completely wiped this guy out of existence, but he's still there. And
Hmm.
and then bring him into the story that way. But then the only thing is there is that would revert her back to Miss Marvel, which we can see, they're getting ready to do the streaming service with the actual Miss Marvel character. But they could actually do all of that within that series too,
Because
kind of wrap that up. What's that?
that whole Ms. Marvel thing, that's going to be that for me. That's one of the things I see being a big divide between the generation like you, me, Damaj, and I,
Mm-hmm.
where we remember Ms. Marvel, Carol Danvers in that little black outfit. That Rogue is the one that took Rogue. That Rogue got absorbed her powers and
Right.
actually part of her personality. But and now they have this whole other Miss Marvel that expands her hands and various other stuff.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I'm not too familiar with the Kamala Khan character. I think the most I read of her was just going through like the Civil War and Civil War II and Secret Empire stories. And yeah, I know that's definitely something that's obviously got a lot of people on edge, and rightfully so. I mean, because the MCU has kind of taken some liberties at changing a lot of stuff, and I completely understand people who aren't into that. Where me, and I don't think there's anybody out there who wants to see any of these comic books directly translated to screen. But I would like to see them try some new and interesting things. And I guess if there's anybody to do it, I do trust in Kevin Feige to bring us a better version on screen than what we've got in the comic books. Because I think that's kind of what we've got so far, like with Iron Man. Because Iron Man wasn't like one of their top tier characters before the MCU got started.
No. Actually, a lot of, other than like Captain America, a lot of them really weren't like top tier characters.
Right.
Thor had his own comic book.
Mm-hmm.
Because I remember checking that one out in high school.
Right.
But um, like, sorry, my mind's all over the place. I don't know how much of this is lack of coffee or whatever, or just the pull back and forth. But yeah, a lot of them, even Nick Fury, wasn't as top tier, and he became one of the most recognized characters. But
Right.
for me, and this is why I hold judgment when it comes to most of the race swapping and that kind of stuff, with exceptions like Magneto. Yeah, no, no, don't touch that one. But because I have a card from God, from the '90s
Mm-hmm.
that of Nick Fury, and he's white.
Right.
Yeah, and that's one of the things most people don't realize. When they're throwing this fit about the stuff getting changed up. Sometimes it actually works out really well
Mm-hmm.
because Samuel L. Jackson is a wonderful Nick Fury.
Oh yeah. Yeah, he's great.
Yeah, for me, like seeing that originally, I'm like, I can see this. I like this. This is work. This works for me.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and me, I'm not like I said, I'm not really necessarily against them doing new things. Like I do kind of fall under the same thing, like with the race swapping and stuff. I'm not for it by any means.
Mm-hmm.
And when they're going to do it, I want to see them at least handle it in a good way if they're going to do that, and at least have some sort of viable reasons for that, for making those changes. And again, I know like with like the whole Magneto thing that's getting ready to come out. If they actually do that, obviously people are going to be upset. But largely, I think that's just a rumor that was started. It was God, I can't even remember where I seen who first put that out there. But it was the same thing like with the Blade being Muslim in the
Mm-hmm.
MCU, and they do that is that whole rumor. I remember I went and tried to trace down who it was that said that. There was like some guy on Twitter that has like, I think he had like 40 followers who sent this tweet out there about Blade's gonna be Muslim in the MCU, and like everybody ran with it. And I'm like,
Yeah,
there's no official story here to this, but you know
yeah.
the way things are with social media, I mean, it blew up so fast, so fast. Um, and just in that. But at the same time, I mean, I do get it, and that's kind of the thing with whether it's the MCU with these Marvel characters or even in
Mm-hmm.
Star Wars. And I was talking about this on my show the other day. Is like all these things are beloved properties. People are emotionally invested in these things. They're monetarily invested in these things,
Yeah.
and when things change up like that, people get upset, and I totally get that. And so when I see like some of these movies coming out, they're getting ready to, they're going to make some of these changes. Especially like even like with Star Wars, like J.J. Abrams even coming in and redoing, or doing the Force Awakens. I guess some people would say redoing A New Hope, but doing the Force Awakens, and then Ryan Johnson coming in and doing the Last Jedi is, and then especially even with the MCU. One of the things is that my hat's off to anybody doing this because that's a bold move. I mean, you've got expectations
Mm-hmm.
to live up to, huge expectations that people have of all of these properties, and for anybody to really put themselves out there and brave those waters, it's a bold endeavor. It's a bold endeavor.
Yes, especially with fandoms or ones that have been around for so long, like Star Wars, like Star Trek.
Mm-hmm.
history,
Mm-hmm.
to go and change things up is bold and yes, frequently risky.
Yeah.
You know, it all depends on how they play it out to see how the fans take it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and it's always like I said, it is risky to go out there and do the changes, and that's why a lot of times, I mean, I feel like it's probably best not to, but at the same time, I mean, some of these things could stand to be updated, and seeing a different version than we get in the comics or in these books is definitely a good thing. But I do, like I said, I do understand when people get upset too, because like I said, people are really heavily invested in these properties, and there's certainly people out there that are huger fans of these things than even I am. So
Mhm.
I completely get where a lot of the people are coming from when it comes to that.
Yeah, I was just taking a peek
Yeah, yeah, and
down.
I'm gonna go ahead and get here into some of the chats here. We got Abu says great discussion about Winter Soldier, which is my favorite MCU movie besides Black Panther. Yeah, Winter Soldier. I mean, that's definitely it might be about one of the best movies in the MCU. I mean, if it wasn't for
Yeah.
Infinity War coming in, that Winter Soldier was definitely a good one. And I like Black Panther. And at first I didn't know that I was gonna like Black Panther because I'm not like a huge fan of Ryan Coogler or anything. Matter of fact, I'd only really seen Creed out of the movies that he did, but I didn't think that if there was anybody that's going to come in and direct that movie and do a good job with it, it would be
Hmm.
somebody like a Ryan Coogler. And I really like what he did with the movie because he's obviously obviously he's a black guy and he has that perspective that a lot of like white people don't have. And a
Exactly.
lot of people think that he's going to have certain messages to put in there, but I think the messages that were in that movie were really great, where we see Killmonger, who is kind of he's the extremist, but you still empathize with what he's his aim, um, through just what he's trying to do, for his people. And then
Hmm.
also you get that contrasting thing with T'Challa, who's like, man, it's not just about us, man. It's like about the whole world. There's
Yeah.
more than just us out there who have suffered, and there's a whole bigger picture that you're not seeing here. And I thought he handled that really well. I think the only bad thing about Black Panther is just some of the computer graphics and things like that, especially in that last battle scene, that won't hold up and stand the test of time. Like they already don't. That whole last battle scene was kind of it was kind of out there. It was a little
Most
cheesy.
most graphics don't really hold up the test of time, and that's one of those things you keep in mind when you go back and watch older movies, because a lot of the time you've got the ones that the real fans that going back going, oh, how did we fall for that? You
Right.
know.
Yeah.
But honestly, when it comes to Black Panther, I really love the amount of research and design that went into that, because each one of the tribes ha- came from different African tribes. That's where their designs came from. And like
Mm-hmm.
my dad was a huge Africa was one of his favorite places. He went and visited there all the time.
Nice.
So there was always pictures, stuff coming back with it.
Mm-hmm.
So it's why I absolutely loved it. It's just the design itself was beautiful, and the story was fantastic.
Yeah, yeah, and I agree there because yeah, they really built that world up and made it seem really authentic and
Mhm.
fantastical at the same time. Is pretty very immersive, and I know that was something I think they were talking about even with like the Doctor Strange movie, is trying to get that world and bring it across where you actually see people interacting in the background. You see people eating and just all the different things that go along with these different cultures, that really
The
helps.
difference in jewelry, hairstyles, yeah.
Yeah, and it really helps bring that world to life as opposed to like when we see the Avengers in New York City. I mean, that's just a world we live in. We're all used to seeing there, and there's I don't know. There's just so much that you can. I don't know. There's not as much to translate because it's something that we all see in on screen in movies
Hmm.
just about every single day.
Yeah.
Aggressively relaxing in here says, "What's up, everybody? Uh, thanks for the morning. Need to listen, or the morning need chat to listen while working. Oh, okay, awesome. And thank you for being here. Oh, nerd morning nerd chat to listen while working. And again, if you guys haven't been to Aggressively Relaxing's channel, you need to go check out his channel. He's been doing these spam call things, talking about the comic books. Absolutely hilarious. The last video he did had me dying laughing, where he was talking to one of these spam callers, and this guy is like, he's like, hello. He's like, oh. He's like, are you? I can't even get into it. Absolutely great stuff. Very good. Lord Callus is here. Thank you so much for being here. And if you guys haven't checked out Lord Callus, absolutely great dude. Knows his
Mhm.
Star Wars stuff. Has a great love for Star Wars and the EU. Very knowledgeable dude. He says, at work
Seriously.
but trying to sneak a listen. Salute chat, salute panel. Yeah, and thanks again for being here, Lord Callus. Always a great supporter of everybody out there as well. I see, a lot of us creators, we're out there helping support each other and kind of getting interactive out here. Russell Wells Benjamin says, bro, breaking news. Sony and Marvel made a deal for Spider-Man. Josh at the Den of Nerds just broke
Really?
the story. Oh man. Okay. I guess I'm gonna have something interesting to look forward to as soon as I get here off the stream. Um, he says, for real, happy Friday to everybody, and happy Friday to you, Russell Wells Benjamin,
Mhm.
another great supporter here of the channel, and he is one of my Patreon supporters. And if you guys want to go support me on Patreon, you can feel free to do that. There is a link down in the description where you can go and you can send direct donations via Streamlabs, or even become a monthly Patreon member, or even just a one-time donation. It's all good, but don't ever feel committed to having to do something like that. I'm going to be here making content in the first place, but I am going to be using that money to help make some upgrades here on the channel, make things a little bit better for you all. Carrie Neves, welcome to the live stream. I greatly appreciate you being here. He says, Russell Wells Benjamin says, Feige producing Spider-Man 3 and Spider-Man will appear in a Marvel collab film. Okay, and this is, wow, that's crazy. It says Disney
Mhm.
getting roughly 25% and 25% co-financing. That's some interesting stuff there, and especially with the collab film, because there's been that rumor going around that they wanted to use Spider-Man to help as a springboard to help make Carol Danvers a little more likable, to a little more receptive to the audience is a little more receptive to her, which that's interesting. I'm gonna have, man. Oh, why this morning, YouTube? Why this morning? Come on, Disney. We're trying to have a show here and discuss Falcon and Winter Soldier. um, Let's see. Aggressively relaxing says, "I'm glad Feige was able to find some time in his schedule that was too busy." Yeah, that's funny you say that. And there's been that argument out there. When Sony said that, the one thing I've been saying is, I think Feige was just too busy for what Sony wanted to do with the character in the MCU. I don't think it's necessarily that Feige's too busy, because we can see he's been a busy dude. Russell Wells Benjamin says, yeah, took on Star Wars and apparently had more time for Spider Man. Yeah, he's a busy dude and he knows what he's doing. I think, maybe not everybody feels the same way, but I do trust in Feige to. He's a huge nerd like a lot of us are. He has love for
Yeah.
these properties, and I trust him to do as good a job as can be done. He, and again, of course we did get through. Not everything has been copacetic, but he's done a really good job in building the worlds that we have so far. I'm looking forward to see what he's going to be doing with the Spider-Man or the Star Wars
Mhm.
series as well. Russell Wells Benjamin says Sony full of shit. Y'all talking about how fast shit blows up for the MCU online, and still haven't seen the comments about the news that just broke. Yeah, sorry, man. We're just here geeking out, but yeah, it's something I'm definitely going to be getting on, and I'll, obviously tonight on Trailer Park Live, I'll be discussing that as soon as I get into when I get into that tonight. So he
Yeah.
also says, Captain Hindsight here, letting you know your excitement will be justified. Hashtag faith in Feige. Oh, Russell Wills Benjamin, you're funny, man. You crack me up. But yeah, I know. I'm certainly excited to hear that. I mean, that's good news for
Mhm.
for all of us. Hearing about that. I mean, how do you feel about that? What do you think about
No,
them
I'm
finally
I'm
making a
I'm
deal?
with you. That's actually really great news because that whole that Tom Holland, I know he's a little young for the Spider-Man as most of us know it,
Mm-hmm.
but I like him as a Spider-Man. He's a great young Peter Parker, and
Yes.
that constant banter that was especially in Civil War. That
Mm-hmm.
whole Spider-Man with Falcon and the Winter Soldier, bringing it back around. Um, that was actually one of my favorite fight scenes from that whole bit.
Oh yeah.
The whole, I don't know how many fights you've been in, but there's usually not this much talking.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, that was really great, and I think for me that was one of the biggest things. Like, I was excited when Civil War came out, was the
Mhm.
the fact that I think in that movie they really nailed Peter Parker and Spider Man.
Yes.
And then once we got into Homecoming, I think, as much as I like Homecoming and Far From Home, I think that's where it kind of like I kind of started to disconnect from MCU Spider-Man in the fact that he's not the Spider-Man that I know from the comics that I
Yes.
grew up liking. He's more of like the Dan Slott era Spider-Man where because he's kind of looking up to Tony Stark, and he's got all that tech and the weapons and stuff like that. Where my Peter Parker, he made his own suit. He was that
Yep.
awkward kid in school. Um,
He looked up to Captain America.
right,
Out of any of the Avengers, it was Captain America that he looked up to. Like I can understand how he would look up to Tony because that was the first one he actually met.
right.
But I'd like to see it high, changing a bit more towards, Steve Rogers because they have that similar background. They're both from New York. You
Hmm.
know,
Yeah,
they both have that souped up powers that came not naturally.
right. Definitely, and that's yeah, and that's like I said that that and the only other kind of thing like I said I don't really like that aspect of Spider-Man in the MCU. So like when they announced that the deal had fallen through and it wasn't going to be happening, I was okay with it. I definitely wasn't upset. I mean, it's nice to see him there mixing it up with all the characters, but if there's any character out there in the MCU right now that can hold his own, not being in the MCU, it's Spider Man. Definitely Spider Man.
Yeah, yeah. Apparently, it's true. There, there's definitely been an opinion weighed on the whole Spider-Man Marvel thing. I just got the notification for it. Our favorite lonely friend is has gotten on it.
Oh, he's LB from the Lonely Banter. I see what you're doing. You're trying to get the jump on me here. Trying to get the jump on
I,
me
I
here on the
I got
stories.
I got notifications for everybody post from the Tuesday night.
Yeah, me too. Oh yeah, I just haven't been paying attention to him. But oh yeah, I see the Den of Nerds came and he did it live. LB did it
Mm-hmm.
live. Man, I'm sure
I'll
John
be live.
Campea
I
is gonna
missed that
start
again.
early. But well, here it's almost 9 o'clock. It's been really great having you on. Ooh,
Yeah.
Snow Dub Music and Entertainment comes in and says hashtag Jenner check. Woo, man, Snow Dub, where you been, man? It seems like you've been quiet. I haven't heard from you lately. Oh man,
Yeah, yeah, been quiet.
yeah. I don't know about you, but I love Snow Dub, man. Like he's he cracks me up. Him and Kermit, they're just so
Mm.
awesome. And I've been following them for a while. And then I was blessed to be on their show a couple of weeks ago. Went on there, had an absolute blast with those dudes, man. They're very funny, and of course, I'm sure people have different opinions about them or whatnot. I'm not here for everybody else's opinion. I mean, I want to hear everybody's opinion, but I just like these dudes. They crack me up, man. They really do crack me up. And
Honestly, I'd love to see you on the Ribbit and Bigot show with there you go, tag for you, pop for you, Snow. In the your trailer park, you know, character because it would just be so fitting with the other two.
yes, yeah. Maybe I'll have to do that. I'll go ahead and break out the Myrtle next time I'm lucky enough to
Mm-hmm.
be on their show. And we got Maverick Pilgrim. He comes in and says, "Oh hey, how you doing, Maverick Pilgrim? Welcome to the live stream. Just getting ready to wrap it up here. But
Yep.
thank you so much for getting in here, dude. And make sure you all hit that like button and stuff, and go follow Mad's Mama Bear. Have you started making content here on YouTube yet?
No, at this point, I don't have a system I can make because all I've got is like my cell phone. Not seem to want to take my videos. I don't know if it's just the age of the devices or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
And as just I've heard a number of times, no, the headsets I get are apparently not as sensitive as or as good as the equipment.
Mm-hmm.
So it upgrading that kind of stuff would ideally probably be
Yeah.
a bet, you know, because I
Yeah.
can't edit videos or anything at this point.
Yeah, I understand. I totally get that. Well, looking forward to hopefully that will happen for you in the near future. But I mean, until then, I mean, it's nice to have
Mm,
see finally see your beautiful face here on screen and interacting with everybody. It's really nice. I
even if I'm
enjoy
yellow.
it.
I gotta get new light bulbs.
But But yeah. Oh, Snowdub says sorry. I've been working a ton. I'll have you back on soon. You too, Mads Mama Bear. See, you're. I'm getting ready. I'm getting ready to get a little bit explicit here, kids. But Mads Mama Bear, see you coming in. You're making an impact in the community, being on these streams. I mean, it sounds like everybody's
Great.
wanting to pass you around like a joint at a frat party.
Well, I that's let you down the left hand side. So, yeah, yeah. Honestly, it was it that was the whole big surprise for me out of this whole thing. Because I like to come on, I do this the sarcastic, the funny comments,
Hmm.
and for it to morph into something like this has really been surreal.
Right. And that's kind of what how my YouTube channel is done too. I mean, I started off
Mm,
doing like like theory videos and things like that. Um, because I was watching all these other videos and I'm like man like I I'm watching all these theory videos and I'm like did these people not watch this movie, like they covered that in this movie, and and so I started doing that, and then it kind of grew and took on its took on a life of its own. So but yeah, it's definitely been nice seeing you come on here on these different live streams and being with people. Definitely something I've enjoyed.
it's fun. I
So
actually like it.
yeah, it's fun. And sometimes it's funner interacting that way than just in the chats too. Definitely
Yes.
something fun. But we're gonna go ahead and wrap it up. Go ahead and tell everybody where they can find you once again before we wrap all this up.
Okay, I can be found on Twitter. I do have the YouTube account, but all you'll be seeing is whatever I like. I have can be found and interacted with on Twitter at Mads Mama Bear. So, yeah, come over to my Twitter. Check out the stuff I post because I'm always posting something or other. I'm currently having fun with a little bit of the Twitter war at the moment, but nothing I can't handle.
Yeah, that's how Twitter is, man. Like I used to think, I was on Facebook for a long time. Well, I'm still on Facebook, but I was there, been there for a while, and I'm just kind of like, man, it's kind of a convoluted thing. And then I started my YouTube channel, and that's when I started getting on Twitter. I'm like, whoa, like
Mm.
this is like Facebook times 1,000 times 1,000,000.
It's nice how it's interesting how one comment can really change things. Like I've got one that's been going for a couple days now, and I have never had a comment disliked before. And it's absolutely it's wild.
Yeah, yeah, it's definitely something crazy. But
Mm,
thank you again, Mads Mama Bear, for being here. Like I said, everybody go follow Mads on Twitter and give her a like, interact with her. She's so awesome and always supportive here of my channel and everybody else
mhm.
out there. All the other content creators that I've watched their videos and stuff, you'll find Mads Mama Bear on there interacting, having a good time. And it's always a good time interesting with you. This has been a really,
Mhm.
this hour has flown by. Been an absolute pleasure having you on the
Seriously.
show. Thank you
No,
so
thank
much
you
for
for
being
having
here.
me on. I
Yeah,
honestly I was looking forward to this all week.
yeah, me
So,
too. Me too. Once we talked about it, I was like, ooh, like what are we gonna talk about? This is gonna be so much fun. And yeah, so again, thank you all so much for tuning into the Second Street Marvel today. If you haven't already, please make sure you're subscribed and click that little bell so you get notifications anytime I've uploaded new content. And if you like this video, please give it a thumbs up. And while you're at it, make sure that you share it with a friend and invite them to come hang out with us here on the Second Street Marvel. You all have a very good day. Have a great, well, rest of your week, and make sure that you tune in to the Trailer Park Live this evening at 8 p.m. Pacific Standard
mhm.
Time. Check your local listings. You all have a very good day, and we'll see you then. Later. Oh no, my stuff didn't work. There we go.
Didn't work? There you go. Ah, fair up.